don't normally do topical videos about stuff that's in the news and all the rest of it. That's not really our focus, but this sort of fringes onto that, so thought I'd do this video. A couple of days ago, a very significant tree was cut down in the north of England near Northumberland in a place called Sycamore Gap on Hadrian's Wall, and it's a beautiful tree. The reason that it's so well known is because it was in a virtually treeless landscape. It's a fairly open, bleak kind of landscape in that area, very open, not much tree cover at all, and this tree was like nestled perfectly between two hills, very picturesque. So people would get it with like the aurora borealis behind it, or just the starscape behind it, or the dawn behind it, or whatever. It's been heavily photographed. It's very well loved. It's reasonably accessible. There's a road passage reasonably close, so people can get there, so it's very popular. And people have been going to this place for decades and having picnics there and all the rest of it. It's very well loved. People have, had their ashes scattered there. People have proposed to each other there. It's a beautiful tree in a lovely location. It's very well loved. And it got cut down in the middle of the night. And the internet is currently full of stories all over the place saying R.I.P. tree has been murdered, it's been killed, and so on. Huge reaction, understandable. It's a massive, terrible act of vandalism. And obviously I utterly condemn it. I plant trees by the thousand. I'm, not on the fence here. I like trees. But this tree isn't dead. And this is what I'm making this video about. It's easy to focus on, that's it. It was a beautiful tree and it's gone forever. It isn't. It's going to grow back. It's a sycamore. You can't kill sycamore if you try. I mean, if you've got to try and clear, it's generally considered as a weed species. It's a borderline invasive tree in this country. This one isn't. I mean, there's no other sycamores around it. It's clearly not a problem. It's a beautiful tree in a beautiful setting. Fantastic. But it's a relatively short-lived tree compared to some, typically about 400 years, which isn't much for a full-height tree. And it was about 300 years old, I reckon, at the point that whoever cut it down, cut it down. It wasn't done with this in mind, bear in mind. It was a mindless act of vandalism. It hasn't been stated yet what the reasons for cutting this tree down, but it was allegedly a young man did it in the middle of the night. But that tree isn't dead. It's going to grow back. By next spring, it'll start pushing out shoots. And those shoots within its first season, so by the end of next year, will be taller than me. With a little bit of shaping, or even just letting nature take its course, it will in time revert to a full maiden tree. It's going to recover because 40% of the mass of a tree is below ground in the roots. Those roots are full of energy, massive amount of carbohydrates, just ready to start pushing branches out again. This is a tree that co-evolved with, major land disturbances like, rivers changing course and landslips and all sorts, natural events, as well as, heavy grazing by, megafauna, effectively. This thing was designed for, evolved rather, for, mammoths leaning against it. It evolved for woolly rhinos chewing on it, It's a very old tree variety. It's a very old tree species. It's been around a very long time, and it's tough. Some idiot with a chainsaw can't kill it. It's just out of action for a few decades, but it will be back. People will continue to scatter the ashes of loved ones underneath it. People will continue to picnic beneath it. People will continue to have meaningful events under this tree. They'll continue to photograph it against the night sky. It's just gone away for a little while. It's not dead. But if you feel particularly affected by this and you're upset by this, and you should be, this is a senseless act of vandalism against a beautiful tree. What you could do is channel that into planting some trees. You could channel that into protesting the likes of, we're too late now, but there'll be something like HS2 along very quickly. Hundreds and hundreds of trees, more significant than this tree, were cut down in the event, in the construction of HS2. There will always be something else. There will always be something else threatening tree. Not a single tree. This has got our attention because it's a single tree in a particularly picturesque place, and it's beautiful. It is a stunning tree. It should never have been cut down. But let's look at this in its perspective, in its context. It's one tree. We cut down hundreds and hundreds that shouldn't be cut down every year. And I'm not a big advocate of let's just reforest the whole country. No, we need a lot more trees, don't get me wrong. We need to forest large areas of it. I've planted 10,000 trees myself on this land, but not everywhere is suitable for tree. We do still need, open spaces and all the rest of it. But plant trees, campaign for trees, protect trees, do all the rest of it. Now I'm going to finish this video on a somewhat positive note. That tree was expected to live for about 400 years. It's about 300 years old at this point. So what this idiot's done is effectively reset that. The tree will regrow and that begins anew. It'll get another 400 years, which basically means that when the person who cut it down is dust in the wind, long gone and forgotten, this tree will still be pushing out branches, it'll still be habitat, it'll still be sequestering carbon, and it'll still be a backdrop for beautiful photos long after he's gone.